Hello, and welcome to Day by Day True Crime Stories, the podcast where we delve into a different crime or justice milestone from this day in history. I'm your host, Kona Gallagher, and today is February 17th. On this day in 1974, a crime rocked the city of Fort Worth, Texas. Carla Walker, a bright and lively 17-year-old, was brutally kidnapped and murdered, leaving behind a devastated family and a community who was desperate for answers. For nearly 5 decades, her case remained unsolved and remained a painful reminder of how justice sometimes takes far too long. But thanks to persistence, forensic science, and tireless investigators, Carla's case finally found closure. Today we're telling the story of Carla's life, the terrifying night she was taken, and the long journey to finally bring her killer to justice. Let's get started. Carla Jan Walker was born on January 31st, 1957 to Leighton and Doris Walker. In 1974, she was a 17-year-old student at Western Hills High School. Carla was fun, outgoing, and loved life. She was a cheerleader, a great student, and was deeply loved by her family and friends. Carla had a promising future, and her biggest dream was to become a veterinarian. She had a passion for animals and wanted to dedicate her life to helping them. She was the kind of person who always had a kind word and was always willing to help others. But on February 17th, 1974, Carla's bright future was stolen from her in the most unimaginable way possible. It was Valentine's weekend, and like any teenager in love, Carla was excited. She and her boyfriend, Rodney McCoy, had been dating for a while, and they were inseparable. That night, they went to a Valentine's Day dance at their school where they danced, laughed, and just enjoyed being young. After the dance, they decided to stop by the Brunswick Ridgely Bowl, a local bowling alley where a lot of teenagers hung out. They weren't there to bowl, just to use the restroom and see their friends before heading home. But as they sat in the car in the parking lot, everything changed. Without warning, the passenger door was ripped open, and before Rodney could react, a man grabbed Carla. In a split second, the attacker, who is described as a white male about 5'10" tall, pistol whipped Rodney, knocking him unconscious. As he faded in and out, Rodney's last memory was Carla screaming. She was begging for help as she was being dragged away into the darkness. When Rodney finally came to, Carla was gone. He was dazed, bleeding, and in shock, but he knew one thing. He had to get help. He drove straight to Carla's house and told her family what had happened. The police were called immediately, and the search for Carla began, but they were already racing against time. 3 days later, on February 20th, 1974, the unthinkable happened. Carla's body was found in a culvert near Lake Benbrook, about 30 minutes from Fort Worth. She had been beaten, tortured, raped, and strangled. What's worse is the autopsy revealed that she had been alive for up to 2 days after her abduction, meaning that her killer had kept her captive before ending her life. Toxicology reports also indicated that she had been injected with morphine, which suggested that her captor had access to medical substances and used them to subdue her. The Fort Worth police threw everything they had into this case. They collected evidence, they interviewed suspects, and they chased every lead. At the scene, they found a magazine from a .22 caliber Ruger pistol, which was a crucial clue. This led them to Glenn Samuel McCurley, a man who had purchased a Ruger just like it. But when questioned, McCurley claimed the gun had been stolen. He even passed a polygraph test, and so with no real evidence linking him to the crime, he was let go and taken off the suspect list. Despite collecting bodily fluid samples and preserving Carla's clothing, the forensic technology available in the 1970s wasn't advanced enough to identify the perpetrator. DNA profiling as we know it today was not yet developed, And so the samples collected were stored in the hopes that future advancements would provide answers. And so as the leads dwindled and the years passed, Carla's case went cold. Fast forward to 2020, 46 years later. Thanks to advances in DNA technology, investigators were able to re-examine Carla's clothing. With the help of Author Inc., a forensic lab specializing in analyzing degraded DNA samples, they tested the DNA found on her clothes. The result? They had a match, and that match led them straight back to Glenn Samuel McCurley. But they had to be sure, so investigators discreetly obtained DNA samples from McCurley's trash. Once those findings were confirmed, they later secured a direct cheek swab, and that confirmed it. He was 100% their guy. This development was a significant breakthrough as it linked McCurley directly to the crime scene after 46 years. At this time, McCurley was 77 years old and had been living free for nearly 5 decades, never thinking that his past would catch up with him. But now detectives had DNA evidence that put him at the crime scene. McCurley was arrested and charged with Carla's murder in September 2020. He initially denied everything, but the evidence was overwhelming. McCurley's trial began in August 2021 at the Tarrant County Courthouse. The prosecution presented a comprehensive case detailing the sequence of events leading to Carla's death and the key evidence linking McCurley to the crime. This evidence included the .22 Ruger pistol that they had found concealed in McCurley's home, despite his earlier claim that it had been stolen. The presence of the weapon, along with the DNA evidence, painted a damning picture of McCurley's involvement. The defense initially maintained McCurley's innocence, challenging the reliability of the DNA evidence and suggesting possible contamination. They argued that the decades-old evidence might have been compromised and questioned the methods used in the investigation. However, the advancements in DNA technology and the meticulous work of forensic experts made it difficult to refute the evidence presented. Then, in a shocking twist, after 3 days in court, McCurley did something no one expected. He changed his plea to guilty. In an emotionless confession, he admitted to kidnapping, raping, and murdering Carla Walker. For Carla's family, the confession was bittersweet. They finally had answers. They finally had justice, and they had been spared from enduring a long trial. But at the end of the day, nothing could bring Carla back. Carla Walker's case had a profound impact beyond her immediate community. In December 2024, U.S. Senators John Cornyn and Peter Welch introduced the Carla Walker Act, and this act aimed to support forensic genetic genealogy DNA analysis to help solve cold cases. The legislation seeks to provide federal grant funds to investigative agencies aiding in resolving previously unresolved cases, identifying criminals, and exonerating the wrongfully accused, and bringing closure to victims' families. This act means that other families who have waited decades for answers, may one day get the justice that they deserve. Carla Walker's murder was a horrific tragedy, but her story is also a testament to perseverance. It took 46 years, but in the end, her killer was caught. And in July 2023, McCurley died in prison. And thanks to the dedication of investigators and advancements in forensic science, Carla's legacy will help solve more cases like hers. Thank you for joining me on today's episode of Day by Day True Crime Stories. If you found this story compelling, please subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you're listening to this podcast or watching it. And be sure to join me tomorrow as we explore another significant event in true crime history. In the meantime, stay safe and remember that behind every headline is a life worth remembering. Day by Day True Crime Stories is a Little Monster production.
Hey, you can do it.